This is a recurring theme in the past fortnight or so for me. On Facebook, I've been engaging in discussions with atheists who demand that I prove the existence of God. And I admit plainly that I am an agnostic because I know there can be no physical evidence of the Abrahamic God, unless we say, oh, we exist because, and therefore God does. And this would not obviously be logical, because the whole point of atheists is that God doesn't exist, but we do, and we would be fools for believing in an imaginary being. And so for them, it would be more logical not to believe in God than to believe in God. But that is a problem of empiricism. So empiricism is basically the idea that you will not accept the truth of anything unless you see the evidence for it. So it could be as simple as saying, well, I'll believe it when I see it. And in the meantime, I'm not accepting the truth of what you're saying. But if it is indeed true, it will be proven true when it can be proven to be true. So such a person is obviously denying God, and anyway, according to the narrative of the Abrahamic God, the 13 principles of Maimonides say that God is not to be found in any physical or material form. So how would you find God if he, by definition, cannot be detected physically or through any scientific instrument? So by making God just an idea, it makes clear what other forms of, it makes clear that the Abrahamic God is different to others and cannot be equaled in conception, because it shares these, it has these unique characteristics that no other previous idols, previous deities have. And that is the source of the greatness of God, if he exists. But these atheists keep saying, well, I won't believe it until I see it, and in the meantime it would just be stupid to believe in a fairy tale. You know how they talk. So I've tried explaining to them that you can only infer the existence of God because, there's no actual physical evidence that would satisfy any atheist, unless they actually met God. But then the definition of God is that he cannot take material form, and it's like nothing we have ever seen or experienced. So anybody who says they met God will not be believed and will be assumed to be a liar or a lunatic. So how are we to prove God's existence? And I'm saying it's impossible, and that's why I'm agnostic. So there are people who genuinely believe that God exists and must be worshipped 5 times a day, because he wrote a book that is the narrative. He wrote 2 books, the Torah and the Quran. But let me talk a little bit about the drawing of inferences. So if I were to be shooting at you, you might infer that I feel hostility towards you and that I don't mean well towards you. And if I charge at you with a knife, you'll infer that I'm angry with you, I want to hurt you, I want to kill you. And these seem to me to be quite reasonable inferences, wouldn't it? So the drawing of inferences is a very powerful instrument, a powerful method of coming to conclusions. So in law, there is this thing called circumstantial evidence. So I'll have to look up examples of it. Examples of people being convicted on circumstantial evidence. I think a good example would be the virgin birth. It's like, you're a woman, you got knocked up, and then you said, "Oh, I didn't do anything. God impregnated me." It happened with Mary, didn't it? Well, this is a definition of circumstantial evidence. Evidence that does not directly prove a fact in dispute, but allows the fact finder to draw a reasonable inference about the existence or non-existence of a fact based on the evidence. So I suppose an example would be your spouse. Or maybe not, okay, it doesn't have to be a spouse, somebody, maybe a flatmate. And there's his or her toothbrush, and one day it's not there. So you can infer that and they don't come back. So you can infer that they might have, gone out, gone to another place, and that would be quite far from where you are. They might have taken a trip abroad, or gone to the country, or gone to the city, or gone to another city, or also in some way distant from you because they are not in the home that you share. And so you would be quite reasonable to draw the inference that if they're not there, and their toothbrush is gone, and they their weekend cases has disappeared, that they might have gone away for a few days. And you could infer, if they don't come back for a month, that they could be dead, or they decided not to come back. I mean, you can draw all kinds of inferences, and I guess you won't really know until you find them again and say, well, why didn't you come back? What happened? Or if they're really dead. So a drawing of inferences is also a way of coming to a conclusion about something. And I'm saying that you can draw an inference that God exists. And there are sound arguments for, are they sound or valid? I'm actually not sure now. Okay, so here is a chain of reasoning. We are here because there was a creation, and we are part of creation. And if there was a creation, there must have been a creator, and that creator was the Abrahamic God who created the universe. So these are a series of, a chain of arguments that have resulted in the person concluding that God exists. You could undermine this narrative by saying that the universe was not created; it was uncreated. It has always existed, and you can't prove that it has never existed. That there was a time when it didn't exist. It's only a theory, the Big Bang, and you can say well, I'm a pantheist because because the universe was uncreated, and by saying it's uncreated, you deny the existence of a creation and therefore the existence of a creator who must have been the Abrahamic God. And so it is a matter of choice whether you want to believe or not by choosing to draw the inference. So like my example of the missing toothbrush and the missing weekend case, you could draw the inference that your flatmate had gone abroad or made a trip to the other end of the country, or isn't nearby. But of course they could move, be just down the road. I mean, in theory it is possible anyway. But anyway, on the question of the creation and the creator, we have two choices. We can choose to believe that the universe was created or that it was uncreated. And if we want to deny the existence of the Abrahamic God, we would choose to believe that the universe was uncreated and therefore had no need of the Abrahamic God to bring it into existence. But interestingly, scientists believe in the Big Bang. They think once upon a time there was a singularity, and then something caused the Big Bang. But on this matter, it seems that theists and atheists are agreed that there was a singularity. And then there was a Big Bang, because there is a verse in the Quran that describes a Big Bang, and this puts the advantage with Muslims who will be saying, we know what caused the Big Bang, we know who did it. Well, it is really scientists who are on the back foot, because they can't really say, who created the Big Bang. They can only say that there was a Big Bang. But I suppose it's always possible to be a scientist who believes in God. So that is really the my what I like to think is as my chain of reasoning, which I like to think it's neat and satisfying, and I think a winning argument, because really what I propose is intended to be morally and intellectually satisfying. I'm not asking you to believe in any kind of nonsense such as Jesus created the universe. And for Europeans in particular, it is important for them to understand the nature of the creator. I think a lot of people think, we were 2,000 years is a long time. And yeah, it's a long time to believe in nonsense or pretend to believe in nonsense, and you've got something better that has come up that would solve your problems. But it would entail having to acknowledge that you did believe in nonsense for around 2,000 years. Or if you didn't, you pretended to believe in nonsense because that was what was expected of you. 2,000 years of believing in nonsense or pretending to believe in nonsense, that is a long time. But nothing is forever. And I understand the reasons why you might not wish to acknowledge that the Trinity is idolatry and blasphemy because, well, I know it's not nice to think that this was what your ruling classes did to you for so long. They forced you to believe in nonsense. And now in a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to say that those who wish to remain in denial that they have been believing in nonsense for 2,000 years are suffering from the Stockholm syndrome, which is dependency on the people that they ought to treat as the enemy. You know, the Stockholm syndrome was I believe these hostages held by some bank robbers, and after a while they seem to become loyal to their prisoners. I mean, they're the people who held the key to their prisons, who were imprisoning them, who were treating them as prisoners and slaves. And it doesn't matter about, well, it's irrelevant about the beauty of European cathedrals and the stained glass windows and Handel and Purcell and all these Bach and who make up what is known as the height of European music, I suppose. I mean, some people might prefer Wagner, but the pretty music doesn't make Christianity true. It just means that monarchs had to sponsor art and music in order to make their subjects come to church, because it would be, well, a bit embarrassing if their places of worship were completely empty because they didn't believe in that nonsense. And I think that is also evidence of disbelief, that they had to be bribed to come into church. A good show had to be put on for them, smells and bells and incense and sound and light shows with music. I mean, I've been to there is this Catholic church in Farm Street in Mayfair, and what I did notice about the service was, well, the lighting and the music, and they do it so well. But fundamentally, it was empty of content. So you go there every Sunday. I mean, maybe you do believe in God for a bit, but it's really the architecture, the surroundings that make it, that push you towards that feeling of perhaps transcendence. But really, it's sound and light. Maybe what drugged young people do, which is go to their music festivals and take drugs and listen to the music and have their religious experience. I mean, I guess that's just a more sedate version of what young people who go to music concerts enjoy. And I'm saying that religion, okay, this is really the form of religion, the practices, the shows. I mean, that's what they are. They're just shows. And the show is not the substance of your religion. The substance of your religion is its laws. And the proof of the effectiveness, the efficacy of these laws is the length of your civilization, the duration of your civilization. And this can only be measured through religion. So you can say that Christianity is about 2,000 years old, and you can think, oh yes, it's quite impressive, it's been a long time. But will it last forever? And what would be the measure of change in the West? So you could say, well, when you talk about a civilization, you have to measure in some way, be a form of government, say absolute monarchy, and then something happened, and then you became a constitutional monarch, but some things take centuries to happen, and at the time it was happening, maybe people didn't notice it that much. It's only with the benefit of hindsight, with historical perspective, that you can look back on it and say, oh yes, this was the moment when things started to change. And we can do that with the history of Christianity. And I'm saying Western civilization, as we know it, will be deemed to have changed if we change our religion and our system of government. If we stop becoming, we end representative democracy and become a one-party state, that would be a milestone in history. If we adopt a different religion other than Christianity, I suppose it's just a formality, because Christianity doesn't operate now in the minds of anyone, really, because if it were operating, it would be, well, people would be following Christian principles, and the trouble is that they don't. I mean, in the same way that when the Qing dynasty in China came to an end, it was, well, a major milestone in the history of China. After thousands of years of dynastic imperial rule, it just entered and became something else. But how much has it changed? They're still speaking the same language. They are, more or less recognizably Chinese. But some major aspect of their identity is that has changed, in that they are, instead of believing in I don't know, Confucian values or ancestor worship, they have become believers in dialectical materialism, or historical materialism, if you prefer. And this is really what is the great reset of the mind, of cognitive, behavioral therapy. This is really what narratives are about. Yes, you can in a way reprogram people and say, what you used to do that received reward will now be punishment, and what used to be punishment will now be reward. And you can change these laws, but the efficacy will not be as great when people actually believed in them. So people do things with in a different state of mind. If they're doing something in order to avoid punishment, then they wouldn't be doing it with pleasure. They would be doing it reluctantly because they don't want to be punished. But yes, I started this stream talking about making and drawing inferences. And this happens in law quite a lot, because there are crimes that are there are thought crimes. It's not something that came from Orwell alone. He was writing about things that happened in history. Idolatry is thought crime as far as God is concerned. And the only question is whether it should be punished or not. And the answer, according to the Quran, is no. You can't punish somebody for their thoughts, but you can punish them for what they do. And because this is only fair. And back to the question of drawing inferences. There is this thought crime that is murder, really, because murder used to be defined as malice aforethought. It is killing somebody with the intention of killing them, and this is the worst kind of homicide, because the law accepts that sometimes you might accidentally kill a person. You could be responsible, but you might not have meant to do it, and it wasn't your fault, or it was your fault because you were negligent, or it was you were worse than being negligent. You were being reckless. You considered there might be a possibility of somebody getting killed, but you went ahead and did it anyway. And these crimes pop up in terms of road traffic offences, driving dangerously, driving recklessly. These are actual crimes. So there is thought crime as far as idolatry is concerned, or denying the divinity of Jesus. But I suppose in practice, in previous centuries, people would just let people get away with it unless they became too persistent in denying the divinity of Jesus, and then they had to be dealt with very firmly, and then they get burnt at the stake. But the drawing of inferences is what is called circumstantial evidence, and people have been convicted of circumstantial evidence because it's just so obvious. It's like, well, you're pregnant, you must have had sex with somebody, not your husband, if you're not a married woman. And even if no one saw who you had sex with, it can be inferred that you must have had sex with somebody not your spouse. And while you may claim that you were impregnated by some divine being, you won't be believed. But anyway, the point I'm making is that you can choose to infer the existence of God through logic alone. And the logic is this: if there was a Big Bang, then something must have caused a Big Bang. And theists will say, well, it must have been God. You can't think of anybody else who could have done it. Well, you can try and work out what else other than the Abrahamic God could have created the universe. So that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Oh, Gandalf's got a girlfriend and he spent 2 months in India with her. Well, according to the counter, there's 2 of you, so I guess it's not too bad. Quite a few comments, and Gandalf is here. And I think I managed to make my point. It's very nice to see you again, but I won't be streaming for much longer because I'm quite late where I am. I hope you're all well, and well, maybe Gandalf, you'd like to come on Karani Yule and tell us about your girlfriend and your 2 months in India. Oh, I don't want a late night. Okay, well, Gandalf, come on Karani Yule and tell us about your new life. I think we should just restrain ourselves and wait for Karani Yule to hear all the news of Gandalf. Thank you for listening.